Admiral James Stavridis, retired United States Navy, former Allied Supreme Commander. Good morning, Admiral. It is great to be with you. Before I go to the submarine story in the Journal yesterday, I want to talk to you about a podcast I listened to yesterday between Dan Senor and Haviv Rettig-Gur about the Hamas effort to frame the battlefield and the Israeli Defense Forces attempt to frame the battlefield. Not actually on the battlefield, but using public messaging. And I wonder if that was a key component of the NATO strategy when you were the Supreme Commander, and whether or not you think it's evolving in real time on the American side.
First and foremost, yes. This is often called information warfare. It's called control the narrative. Goes by a lot of different names too, but absolutely. And a very practical example. Throughout my time, we were fighting the war in Afghanistan and the Balkans and piracy. The messaging I was very focused on was the 6 months during the Libyan operation, the Libyan war, because we were like the Israelis, we were dropping a lot of precision guided weapons, doing everything we could to minimize collateral damage. We did a very good job of that. I think Israel, when all of this is examined in retrospect, we're going to find the Israelis did all that they could. But you've got to convey that to the public. And so, absolutely, that was a key component for me at NATO. It is a key component for our U.S. military planners. And I think our Israeli friends are watching that. Let's be candid, they're losing that narrative in the greater global marketplace of ideas. They've got to put more and more emphasis on it.
Haviv Rettig-Gur, who is really one of the new comets in the Israeli media sky, was very candid yesterday. He agreed with you. They are losing that battle, and they stepped up the effort last night by releasing a very detailed timeline of the hostages and where they showed up at Shifa Hospital and where the hospitals they went past on the way to Shifa. That, to me, was excellent messaging. But I don't know that they have the bot armies that, say, the PRC has, or even Hamas and its supporters around the world in the Iranian bot farms.
I will say this, the Israeli, it's called 8200, 8200, their force, it's their national security agency. They are as good as anybody in the world. I think they do have scope and scale, not like Russia and China, but I think they're learning to employ that. And by the way, your point, they need to get more visual in this era of TikTok, if I can say that. They need to adopt that 15 seconds of killer video. And I think the classic releases are going to be from these tunnels. The more and more people see what's down there, see the complexity, see those linkages, see how deadly they are, the better it will be for Israel, because people will understand why they have to cut off those tunnels. Like Colin Powell said about Saddam Hussein's army, we are going to find it and cut off its head. The head of that snake of Hamas are those tunnels.
So, Admiral, I want to switch to this story. The headline is misleading. The era of total U.S. submarine dominance over China is ending. It was in the Journal yesterday. And it begins with paragraph after paragraph about advances in the Chinese submarine warfare. And I mean, it's very stunning and very startling, and it would be alarming until they get to way deep in the article. There's little chance that China will catch up with U.S. submarine technology soon. The latest U.S. Virginia-class attack submarines and the planned Columbia-class ballistic missile submarines are a generation ahead of China's capabilities. But that comes like 5 pages in. Did you see this, and what did you make of it?
Yeah, well, let's start by stipulating that China is coming from an almost primitive level of submarine operations. So, can they make rapid advances by leapfrogging, by studying what we did 20 years ago is ahead of where China is when they started getting serious 2 to 3 years ago. So, sure, their trajectory is going to look pretty good. But as you point out, and that's talk about bury the lead. Yes, the Virginia class submarines are listen to me, they are the apex predators of the oceans. The apex predator, the thing that can kill everything else, including surface ships, carriers, And I hate to admit it, I'm a surface line guy. I'm a destroyer officer. I like to think, like World War II, it was kind of an even match between those U-boats and those destroyers. Today, not so much. Those submarines are pure born killers. And even the Columbia, which is going to carry our ballistic missiles, our triad piece, those are deeply silent. They carry torpedoes. I wouldn't want to tangle with one of those things either. So yeah, China is going to get better quickly, but they've got a generation to go before they really match up toe to toe with our team.
The second lead they buried, Admiral, and the one that alarms me, is that China is building the great underwater wall of China, sensors. And I thought back to the book that probably shouldn't have been published, Blind Man's Bluff, when
Yeah.
our very capable, deadly silent submarines would release seals or frogmen onto the bottom of the ocean floor to go tap into their wires and screw with their wires. I'm sure we still have that capability since we had it in the 80s. But what do you make about the new great underwater wall of China? Do you think that presents an insurmountable obstacle to the American submarine force?
It'll make life harder, and they will, like I just said, they will improve over time. And they are smart, and we would be very wise not to underestimate, not to get complacent. And, if I mentally review the comments I just made a moment ago, yeah, there's a little bit of complacency, maybe a little arrogance in Admiral Stavridis' tone. I don't mean to convey that. We need to be mindful that these are smart technologists who are going to get better. Without getting into classified information, I would simply echo what I said earlier. We are quite capable, and I'm confident, still in a position for our apex predators to rule the battlefield. That won't last forever.
Now, Admiral, one of the books I would recommend to people for Christmas is 2034, your novel about war between China and the United States. But of all the books on the Stavridis authored bookshelf, which one would you recommend people get?
That's so nice of you to bring that up. My one stop shopping that a lot of people have enjoyed is a book called The Leader's Bookshelf. And it's really a compendium of 50 books to make you a better leader. So it's the idea of doing a deep dive into great works of leadership literature. People have enjoyed that. But I think it's hard to top 2034. It was number 6 on the New York Times bestseller list. It's been published in 20 languages, including Chinese, in Taiwan. But I think it easily makes it over to the mainland.
I'm surprised.
I
Oh,
keep,
of course, Taiwan. Of course, it'll
yeah,
be everywhere in the CCP land. They don't want
yeah.
people to read it, but they'll read it.
Oh yeah, and I dream of the day there's like a candid shot of President Xi walking out of with the extremely recognizable cover of 2034. That's how Hunt for Red October took off. Ronald
You
Reagan
bet.
was a snapshot of him reading Tom Clancy's book. The rest is history. I'd be remiss, and my publisher would kill me if I didn't mention right behind me over my right shoulder is 2054, which is the sequel and
Wait, is
comes
it
out
out?
short. No, comes out in March. These are the proofs, paper proofs.
Ah,
Out in March, but Hugh, it's about artificial intelligence, geopolitics, artificial intelligence. Yeah, I hear that's kind of a thing these days. So,
I worry about the information domain, to draw the circle back where we began. We're not going to
yeah,
be able to figure out what's real and what's not real. I ran a tape yesterday, which I know to be real, and I authenticated it, but not a lot of people believe that there were thousands of people marching in Manhattan saying, kill the Jews. They were afraid it was a deep fake. And I understand the caution. It was real, and I authenticated it. But pretty soon we're going to be in the world where your voice and my voice can be replicated by anyone saying anything because they've got enough of us on tape.
indeed. And a key word you used a moment ago is authenticate. And I think there will be technological solutions that are going to put stamps on these things. There'll be agencies that do it. I don't think we know what it's going to look like yet. But a number one on my list of concerns with AI is precisely that. It is the twisting, distorting, often very subtle altering of information, very deadly dangerous. And Uh, there's much more to
We
talk about here, and we'll talk about it in the future. But two other things that are in the book 2054 are the effect on military operations, pure military AI, and secondly, replacement of humans by AI in the workforce and the economics of that. You put that alongside of the deep fake, and that's a witch's brew that's coming right at us. And just like people said to me 2034, hey, Stavridis, you got everything right except the date. The war with China is going to come a lot sooner. This is 2054. They're going to say, hey, Stavridis, you got everything right, but it's going to be a lot sooner
accept
than
the date.
2050.
A quick exit question, Admiral. If you were in charge of the Navy, if you were not Queen, not Duke, not Earl, but King of the Navy right now, would you allow young sailors to have devices on ships? Because those devices are all locators. And I'll guarantee you the Hamas surprise terror attack is because they went old school and they didn't do anything electronic. What do you think?
I think that for the moment, it is okay. But as we go forward, it's something that has to be constantly monitored. And second point is it's about discipline as follows. If you are convinced that your crew follows orders, and you can collect those devices as you get into a battle zone, put them in a lead box somewhere in the center of the ship. Whereas when they're on Liberty call, when they're coming on and off the ship in the shipyard, obviously that's fine. So, no, I'm not in favor of an immediate draconian pull away. We need to accommodate life at sea, and there's no need to return to handwritten letters. Now, having said all that, I wrote a letter to my wife every night for 20 years before we got close to being able to communicate with the ship. There's something kind of nice about that as well, too.
There is, and I do think it's an issue they better start studying because it's a vast electronic signature out there, whether it's a destroyer or a submarine or a carrier. Admiral Stav, happy Thanksgiving to you. One of the things we're thankful for is your regular appearances here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Follow him on Twitter at StavridisJ on X, the site formerly known as Twitter.